So the government restricted essential vital medicines from poor people. As you know, I've had a sinus infection for several weeks now, and it's really taken the wind out of me. It started out with allergies, and it was a mild allergy. Usually I get them pretty bad, but since I've started my carnivorous diet, my allergies have gotten so less severe. And then I think I got a cold. My immune system was probably down from the allergies. I'm not even sure if that's true, but I know when it happened, I went to Dollar General and I carried one of those hand baskets, and normally I hand sanitize my hands after I go. It's always on a Friday when we go, and I caught a mild cold. Again, I think the carnivorous diet reduced the symptoms because it was just in the head cold. Well, then it hit. I mean, I knew I had a sinus infection. I've had them before. The first time I had a sinus infection, it was, it didn't act like a sinus infection. It made me, I don't know how to explain it. But this time, it was a typical sinus infection. The pressure and not being able to breathe at night, you know, your nasal passage closes up, because I'm probably still not looking completely healthy. But I tell you, I am a lot better than I was. And I'm going to explain how in a minute, kind of. YouTube isn't actually going to let me tell you too much. As you know, I'm not a big fan of doctors, never have been, and I think that's part of the off-grid mindset that I have. I want to be self-sustaining. Now, people will say, oh, you're not off-grid because you're on the internet. Well, the internet has nothing to do with me being self-sustaining or not. I do that for communication purposes. I don't need it. I don't have to have it. I use it because right now that's how I make money. But self-sustaining means I can feed myself, I can water myself, I can shelter myself, produce my own heat and produce my own electric without having to go and ask somebody else to do it for me. Grocery stores, electric companies. And I'm about 80% there. I mean, there's some things that we consider luxury items. We talk about the generator quite a bit so I can get water out of the well. But that's a convenience. I don't really have to have it. I can get water out of the well with my solar panels. It's just more work. Well, doctors are the same thing. For example, if SHTF, stuff hits the fan, wherever it happened, one thing you're going to have to be concerned about is your medical needs. Now, if you have chronic illnesses, I really think a lot of people should start taking a look at how they can remedy their illnesses on their own without going to a doctor. I know it can be done. I've seen people actually do it. For example, in the comments section, I talk about being a carnivorous diet so much. People tell me, oh yeah, I had all kinds of problems, arthritis or diabetes. Once I started the carnivorous diet, I was instantly cured. I also watch this YouTube doctor. I don't have permission to use this video, so I don't ever mention his name. But I watch him, and you go down the comment section, and people are talking about all the medical marvels, the medical miracles, just by eating meat and getting off carbs. Maybe that's a step in the right direction, is if you have arthritis or back injuries. Carolyn's got a back injury, and she used to be laid up for weeks at a time sometimes, but now she started carnivorous diet, got off carbs. She's nearly cured, it seems like. Of course, we're losing weight, so we're just healthier all around. Now, if you go to a doctor will tell you, oh no, you can't eat meat, that's terrible, a bad idea. But I find it that I'm not been healthier in my life. It seems to me, and I think a lot of people in my comment section would agree with me, that doctors are part of the establishment now. They've been bought off, primarily by pharmaceutical companies. I know when the pandemic happened and everybody was getting sick from that, Joe Rogan, which is a podcaster, pretty famous one, he used to host a show called Fear Factor, and I think he also did some wrestling stuff, but I never watched that, so I don't know for sure. I don't think he was a wrestler. I think he was a commentator or something. But regardless, he has a podcast now, and when he got sick from the thing, he went to the doctor, and the doctor gave him a medication. Well, this medication can also be given to horses. There's a horse brand and then there's a human brand. Well, this medication has been used since the 70s. It's been used for lots of great stuff. I mean, it's kind of like the cure-all for everything. So he got on his podcast and he says, yeah, the doc threw the kitchen sink at it. And he was talking about this medication. The media immediately came out and bashed him because he didn't get the thing, you know. And so they bashed him about taking horse medicine. Well, he didn't take horse medicine. He took medicine that the doctor prescribed. Well, from that point forward, doctors were being restricted on what they could actually prescribe. They couldn't prescribe that anymore. All throughout the country, hospitals were banning it, and this medication is like a cure-all for lots of stuff, and horses, they couldn't use it anymore. So doctors were losing their licenses over this. Pharmacists were refusing to fill the prescriptions that doctors had prescribed. I mean, I couldn't even imagine that. You're telling me you know my medical history better than my doctor. I was just flabbergasted by that. I've never really trusted doctors. I've told you horror stories, but anybody who's been sick in my life and went to the doctor, you know, cancer we're specifically talking about, the doctor killed him with chemo. Chemo is a mustard gas. It was invented by mustard gas. Mustard gas was used as a weapon during World War I or World War II. So I don't agree with using mustard gas to cure my cancer, and it also causes cancer, the same chemotherapy. Well, you're not even allowed to talk about a lot of stuff on YouTube because it's medical misinformation. I have to be careful what I say. What my grandpa, who was a chiropractor and a naturalist, I've talked about this a lot. He had cancer. One of his patients had cancer, and my grandmother had cancer, and he cured all three of them. No sign of cancer. My grandma went into the doctor, and they said, "You got cancer," and they immediately scheduled an appointment with the chemo doctor. And she said, "No, I want to go home and think about this." Of course, she talked to my grandpa, and grandpa put her on the medication that I can't tell you about because it'd be medical misinformation. And let's say she got that cancer when she was in her 50s. She lived a ripe old age in the mid 80s, somewhere around there. Grandpa too. He had prostate cancer. Took care of it. His patient, I don't know much about because he couldn't talk about him, but his patient had cancer, and the patient came in and said, "Doc, I'm going to die. I just wanted to say goodbye to you." And Grandpa said, "Well, at least give me a chance to take care of you." And he did. But I don't see that from doctors. I know there are people in the comment section, "If it wasn't for my doctor, I'd be dead already." Well, I mean, that's fine. I'm not telling you you shouldn't go see a doctor. I don't go see a doctor. I try to take care of myself. I get the sinus infection, and I'm throwing a lot of stuff in it, salt water and peroxide and different things. Of course, the comment section just went ballistic. "Oh, you can't do that, can't do that." Well, I can do it, and I did do it. I was maintaining. It wasn't getting any worse, but it wasn't getting any better. And I thought about getting honey, and I just never got to the store to get honey. They say honey is a good one, probiotics, and I just never got any of those things. I got to thinking, I guess I'm going to have to go to the doctor to get antibiotics. And I just couldn't see myself doing it. I didn't want to go. But I remembered way back when somebody on TV suggested on how to get antibiotics without having to go to a doctor. Well, I thought about it for a long time, and I didn't know if I wanted to do that or not. I thought about it. I was kind of skeptical about doing it. In SHTF, if it's your last chance of survival, doing this thing, it's worth the risk. But when you're living in a normal society and you should be able to go to the doctor, well, I just wasn't sure. And so I was thinking about all the medications in my life that you had to have a prescription before, and now you don't have to have a prescription. I kept thinking, why do you got to have a prescription for antibiotics? So I was thinking about Claritin. I remember back in the 90s, I went in for an allergic reaction. Claritin was a prescription. Well, now you can go to the Dollar General, pick it up. And then I was thinking about Primatene Mist. Carolyn said Primatene Mist used to have a prescription. She said she got it from a doctor for a prescription. And now you can just buy it on the Walmart. And it's really good for asthma. I was thinking about antibiotics. Why do you have to have a prescription for antibiotics? And so most people would say, oh, because you can build up a resistance to it, and if you take too much, you won't be able to use it anymore. Well, no, that's not true. That's not the truth at all. So I Googled it, and I found out that the reason it has to be a prescription is because if you take too much of it, if the entire society takes it, viruses, not bacteria, viruses, so like colds and flus and the thing, antibiotics may not actually help, but it could cause a superbug, because these viruses build up resistance to antibiotics, and so they just get stronger and stronger, and pretty soon we'd have this superbug and wipe out the planet. So that's why they said, okay, only doctors can prescribe it. But then what happened? Doctors started overprescribing it. So the people that they trusted not to overprescribed. How does this make any sense? None of it makes any sense. So I wasn't going to go to the doctor, and I was really worried about getting worse. I knew if I got the fever that I'd be in trouble, because I stopped functioning. I mean, I know I would. I've had a throat infection one time years ago, and I got a fever, and I just couldn't break it. I was just down. I was just completely done. So I really need to get away from that. Well, I got an email from a lady. Now, I was telling you about how I watched on TV that you can buy antibiotics in a certain way if SHTF were to happen. You know, you could have it stored and you don't have to have a prescription. Well, somebody emailed me and she told me the same thing. Well, she gave me a lot of information. Talked about her health issues and how she cured her health issues. Talked about she worked for the medical industry. She's done a lot of research. She's got an education, which I didn't need all that. I mean, you could tell she was well articulate. Her grammar and spelling was really good. And for some reason, which I don't do normally I don't trust anybody, I trusted what she was saying. And she said, look, here's an option for you. And she repeated the option that I already knew about. Now, the thing was, it was like the day before Carolyn and I was talking about taking this option that I'm not allowed to tell you about on YouTube, on how to get antibiotics without a prescription. She said, do your research, try to figure it out. The lady did on the email. And I said, you know, that's great, and I really do appreciate it. I said, my only concern was, before you emailed, was I wasn't sure of the dosings and all that. I sent that email off, and I started researching myself on dosages and different types of antibiotics and the whole thing. And I learned what doses I needed and how often to take it and how long to take it. It was all there. And so you go to Amazon and you find antibiotics that you don't need a prescription for. It can be done. I can't tell you how to do it, but it can be done. She emailed back and said, I wouldn't tell anybody how to do this on YouTube, and I'm not telling anybody. Because like I said, YouTube, which is owned by Google, restrict a ton of information, just like the medicine Joe Rogan used. So if you'll click this up next box, take to a video where I was talking about wood stoves. So I hope I can inspire you to take care of your own self so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.